Hello, we're the Swift group. My name is Moina,
My name is Celine.
and PJ will be later on.
So just to recap the introduction of our language, who designed this language and what is the purpose of it. So Swift was designed and developed by Apple, Chris Latner, Joe Groff, John McCall, Doug Greger, and Ted Kremenek, who developed this language in 2014, just primarily for the use of Apple products. So everything from Mac OS, iOS, iPads, and much, much more.
So now I will be talking about our Swift project features. First and foremost, the programming language we use to code the Countdown Timer mobile app was Swift programming language. We also use Storyboard, which helped with the user interface. Storyboard was first introduced in iOS 5. It is also used to design multiple interfaces and controllers, and it helps to create transitions between these controllers, which helps drastically with the coding. Another feature that we used was Xcode. Xcode is an IDE that helps you build Apple-related apps.
So a couple of the language features listed here are no multiple inheritance. So what I mean by multiple inheritance, you can still have inheritance of an object, so it can inherit from another class. However, you cannot do twice. You can't have that inherited object be inherited by another object. So you can only have objects inherit once. And this language is very similar to C and Java just because it was built with those languages in mind. Since this language was for the purpose of building apps in iOS and macOS, it is very object-oriented. It has structs, classes, objects, generics. This also has very powerful error handling for just in case there is issues with something in the app, and it can still protect the app and all of its information, which is why it has such a high security.
So a real-world application of the Swift language is app development, usually for Apple products. So we decided to create a countdown/timer app to keep track of passing time. So here's a quick overview of the source code. The 3 week variables are for the buttons start, pause, and reset. The timer variable creates a new instance of a timer class. Here we declare seconds to be 60, as 60 would be 1 minute for demonstration purposes. And then we have the variables is timer running and resume tapped, which will act as our switches. The function run timer is the initializer for the timer, where we can specify how often it is called with the time interval and selector. The selector call updates the screen through the update timer method. So update timer simply decreases the seconds, then changes the label on the screen. If the seconds become anything less than 1, it invalidates the timer to signal that the time is up. The pause button tapped will act as a switch between states of being paused or continue the countdown from where the seconds stopped. It tracks when the pause button is tapped, and it will stop the time, change the label to resume. When the resume button is tapped, the time will continue and change the label to pause. The reset button tapped function will stop the timer by invalidating the timer created, then set the seconds back to 60, flip or switch variables, and update that on the timer. The time string takes the current time the object has and returns a string in the format of hours, minutes, seconds. and it separates it using colons and pads the numbers with 2 zeros. To avoid multiple timers being created when the start button is tapped multiple times, the variable is timer running, and the function start button tapped will act as a switch to run the timer. And when all this is run on an iOS or macOS, a simple working timer will start a countdown from 60 seconds as demonstrated on the right picture. Thank you for listening.